Hello, happy Monday, and welcome back for episode 2 of the Even Year Dynasty Show. We're going to go ahead and just hop right in. This is going to be part 2 of our San Francisco Giants offseason preview. Some news of the day: we found out that Michael Conforto is going to be opting into his contract. Yesterday, obviously, we found out that Sean Manaea opted out. Stripling opted in. We already knew that, and the Giants picked up Alex Cobb's uh, club option. So no real surprises there. Also, the Giants did not extend a qualifying offer to any of their players. Don't think that was a surprise. There was no one that really was a real candidate or deserving. They used it on Jock Peterson last year, which was a massive overpay. So glad to see they're not making that mistake again. Some implications of the Conforto opt-in definitely is going to put a little bit. It's going to make a little bit of a crowded outfield at the moment, but we'll kind of talk about how they can work around that and still look to improve. Some other comments that came out from Farhan Zaidi today. They are at the general managers meetings down in Scottsdale, and Farhan did mention he kind of reiterated his desire to get the team younger and more athletic. Not really a surprise, and improve them defensively, which is not really a surprise given, this is a team that finished dead last in stolen bases this year. So, and also made the most errors in baseball. So, definitely a lot of room to improve on both of those. And we're going to kind of talk about how they can go about trying to improve that. But, we are talking about a team that has that is going to need to make some moves. They said they're going to be active on the trade market. To do that, I think they're going to have to look at clearing some space with some of their current players, because you look at the roster as it stands, and you have essentially 13 guys already lined up. If the season were to start today, they have a quote unquote full roster for position players. You have to assume that Patrick Bailey is going to start at catcher. They're going to have either Bart or Sable backing him up. Joey Bart is out of minor league options, so he's either going to have to be on the active roster, or they're going to either DFA him or trade him. I would think he have at least a little bit of value, so they probably trade him in that case. But I wouldn't rule him out as the backup. He is a far superior defensive catcher than Blake Sable is, and if they're really truly committed to the Blake Sable, developing him as a catcher, it would be beneficial potentially to let him play every day down in Sacramento, where he can actually develop while playing. I don't think he's going to play enough behind Patrick Bailey for him to really develop into a solid defensive catcher. And quite frankly, for a backup catcher, the defense is way more important than the offense. So one of those two will be backing him up. You have at first base, you'll have Lamont Wade Jr. and Wilmer Flores. Second base, you have Tyro. They've made it pretty clear that they want Marco Luciano to be the starting shortstop. Obviously, that could change if he has just a dreadful spring and they feel like he's not ready. But I think he's going to get every opportunity. Currently, you have JD Davis penciled in. I have written down either Casey Schmidt or Tyler Fitzgerald is probably going to be kind of a utility extra infield, the bench infielder, given that they can play. Both of them can play second, third, and short. Fitzgerald, you kind of have the bonus of him being able to play center field. I think if it came down to those two, Fitzgerald is probably more likely to be on the roster if it's going to be a bench piece. I think with Schmidt, they're going to probably want him to play every day in some capacity. So if he's not going to play every day in San Francisco, they'll probably put him in Sacramento, at least to start the year. But now the outfield, this is where it gets a little crowded. You have Haniger coming back, Conforto, Yaz, Slater, and then Matos. And then we also can't forget that, Farhan went on KNBR a few weeks ago, and they were asking him about, people they want, he wished he would have seen more of, and kind of unprompted, he brought up Elliot Ramos, which I think most of us think he is not a fan of his, but, he was their Sacramento's best player last year. He's only 24 years old, still oozes with potential, hit the ball harder than almost everybody else on the roster last year. And when he did make contact, there's obviously some swing and miss there. So, if that's someone they're truly wanting to see more of, they're going to have to clear some space. But, as we kind of mentioned earlier, they're looking at trying to get younger and more athletic. So, what could that look like? Well, I think for starters, you're going to have to move probably both Mike Yastrzemski and Austin Slater. I don't see how you can have both Michael Conforto and Mike Yastrzemski on the team. Conforto, his last 2 years that he has played, because obviously missed 2022 with the shoulder injury, has had had a 582 OPS and a 598 OPS against left-handed pitching. I don't like platooning as much as anybody, but there's the old saying, you got to platoon the platoon players, and Michael Conforto is playing like a platoon player the last 2 years that he has been healthy. Now, one hope I would have is, he'll be another year clear of the shoulder injury. It's always possible that, it gets a little stronger. Last year, he just completely power outaged after August. He hit his last home run, I believe, on August 13th and did not hit another one the rest of the way. Obviously he had an injury that sidelined him for 3 weeks in the middle of that, but still, I think the hope will be with him that another year clear of the injury, maybe he can get a little bit of that strength back. But I think Yaz and Slater, you kind of have to move to clear space because, frankly, you look around free agency and some of the best options for upgrading the team, as well as on the trade market, you're probably looking in the outfield. There's not a whole lot of players that are going to help upgrade the team defensively in the infield that are available via free agency or trade at the moment. Some that would be a guy like Matt Chapman. Now, personally, I'm not big on spending big money on a 5+ year contract for a guy like Matt Chapman, who's 31 years old. And, really, I've made this joke a few times where he's basically JD Davis with an elite glove. But, you look at the weighted runs created plus for those two guys the last 4 years. And for Matt Chapman, his last 4 years have gone 118, 101, 118, 110 on WRC plus, which means he's been anywhere from league average to about 18% better than league average. Well, you look at JD Davis, his weighted runs created plus are 118, 128, 119, 104. So with the bat, they profile awfully similar. Granted, Matt Chapman has a career with 92 career defensive runs saved. You're talking about an elite glove. I will not discount that. His leadership toughness, he plays every day. He rarely misses any games. I think he would bring great veteran leadership to the team if they were to go that route. But overall, I just, for a 31-year-old that's been declining offensively already, I think it's hard to give a guy like that $20 to $25 million on a 5+ year contract. So you're probably looking at the outfield to try and upgrade your defense. There's a few options there. They've said they want to get a true center fielder. You can get a guy like Jung-Hoo Lee from the KBO. He's a 340 hitter in the KBO. He's 25 years old, so he fits that whole getting younger and more athletic. He's a 5-time Gold Glove winner over there. He had about 10 to 13 stolen bases a year over there. With the rules in Major League Baseball now, maybe he turns into a 15 to 20 stolen base guy. But, one thing we have to think about with this is it's not just getting more stolen bases. I mean, yes, I I think in today's game with today's rules, it's absolutely inexcusable to not have three guys on your team that can steal 20 plus bags in a year. Right now they have Tyro, and who stole over 20 last year. He missed a good amount of time to injury, so maybe he would have been 25 to 30. But you can, if you can get a couple more guys getting 15 to 20. And the main thing to me is you need guys that can take extra bases on, turn a single into a double occasionally, go first to third, tag up, help manufacture runs. This was a team that situational hitting was abysmal, and they were a station to station offense, which is just inconceivable in today's game. So, a guy like Jung Hoo Lee would at least bring a little bit more speed, even if he's not a big base stealer. Elite bat to ball skills. He only hit double digit home runs twice in the KBO, but he hit 15 one year and 23 another. I think he'd probably be more of a gap power, line driving gap power guy. If maybe he turns into a double digit home run guy. But I wouldn't really bank on that. I think he's going to be more of a table setter, but there's nothing wrong with having some very good table centers that are going to play great defense in center field, hopefully. Another guy that they'll probably look at is Cody Bellinger, who's going to be entering his age 28 season. Lots of concerns around Cody Bellinger. I definitely understand a lot of them. His 2021 and 2022 were absolutely dreadful for LA. He did bounce back and have a really nice season last year. Scott Boras mentioned before the year, hey, he's finally healthy. His play backed it up. Now, I'm going to take anything Scott Boras says with a grain of salt. It's kind of like a used car salesman anytime he opens his mouth. But, his play certainly backed it up last year that he was finally healthy. And he dealt with the shoulder injuries and quite a few other injuries as well over the course of 21 and 22. So, but if you look at him in the 4 healthy seasons he's played, actually 5 healthy seasons he's played out of his 7 years in the league so far, he's really ranged anywhere from good to great offensively. His worst season of those 5s, he had a 112 OPS plus and 112 WRC plus, and that was in the COVID shortened season, which he only played 56 games. It's a super small sample size. It's kind of hard to make a huge judgment on what's basically 2 months of a normal season. But every other year he's been a 120, 134 last year WRC plus. He had obviously his MVP season, it was about 160, which I don't think we should expect that. But you're talking about a guy that's a legit 2020 guy. He might not hit 30 home runs ever in San Francisco, and frankly, I don't care if he ever does. He's a guy that would probably live in the gaps with the way the rules are set up now with the banning of the shift. He's going to hit a ton of line drives. He's going to hit a ton of doubles, some triples. I still think he hits 20 homers over the course of the year, but he's going to steal 20 bags, and he's a plus defender both in the outfield and first base, and he's only 28 years old. So if you sign a guy like that, you're getting 4 or 5 years of his prime, which I think that's a guy that they're definitely going to go hard at. It would make a lot of sense on this team. There's reasons to be concerned. His hard hit percentage is down. His barrel percentage, the average exit velocity, it was down compared to years past, but he's another guy where as he gets further from these injuries, potentially some of his strength returns on that. But even if it doesn't, the speed and the defense and the athleticism, I don't think that's going to slump. I think that'll still age. So even if his bat ends up, being 10% better than league average, you're still looking at a guy that's probably going to produce 3 to 4 wins above replacement a year, which would drastically help this team and be a professional hitter in the middle of the lineup. So he's a good option. Among other position players, there's not really a ton on the free agent market. If you're looking for, another outfielder, you can look at like Lourdes Gurriel from the Diamondbacks. with him, he's low walks, low strikeouts, um, better than average hitter, kind of an average defender in left field. Funny enough, the Jays let him go because he was kind of a poor defender, and he turned into a pretty solid defender last year for Arizona. He ended up being a positive, defensive run saved, positive outs above average. So, and I believe he's going to be 30 this year. So, he's a guy that maybe you can get on a short term deal. If you're just looking for a guy to try and improve the offense, they could look at potentially Reese Hoskins among free agents. He's probably going to go on to a 1-year prove it deal, which, he's a Sacramento guy. So maybe he wants to come to the Bay Area, but I would think with a guy like him, he's going to be 31 years old. He's going to, coming off the torn ACL where he didn't play in 2023, he's probably going to want to go to a team where, more hitter friendly park, um, try and boost his value and get a longer term deal next offseason. So I don't really foresee him as a great fit this year. Not to mention he's a pretty poor defender at first base. He's had a couple years where he's been about league average, but overall he's been a pretty negative defender at first, and probably fits a DH more role than anything. Which right now they have Flores and Haniger as right-handed DH kind of options, and I expect they'll probably use Conforto a bit more in a DH option this year. So barring a miracle Ohtani signing, you already have a pretty crowded DH spot at the moment, so I don't really see the fit there. If they're looking to trade for guys to get a little, quote, younger and more athletic, um, St. Louis supposedly has kind of a need for pitching. Maybe you can look at a guy like Lars Nootbaar or Jordan Walker if they somehow want to trade a 21-year-old. I don't think anyone will complain there. If you look at the Cincinnati Reds, they have players kind of all over. They could potentially be a trade fit. Guys like Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion, Strand, Will Benson, Matt McClain, Tyler Friedel or TJ Friedel. I'm sorry. I think that there's probably more that I'm forgetting, but they have quite a few young guys that kind of would fit that bill. Outside of that, though, potential free agent targets for the Giants next or this offseason. I think the big one that's the biggest name that I think is going to be attainable for them is probably going to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto. 25 years old, really fits what they're trying to do as far as pitch and play defense. He's a front end starter. You're talking about a guy that Farhan Zaidi said was one of the best pitchers in the world. Not just in the majors or on free agency. Like he thinks he's one of the best pitchers in the world. Which, if you compare him up up top the rotation with Logan Webb, that could give them a really dangerous number one and number two. Which I mean, Arizona showed this, this year in the playoffs. They had really two legitimate starters, in Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and they didn't really have anything behind those two, and they had a ton of success in the playoffs. Obviously, making it to the World Series. So, and if Kyle Harrison ends up being close to as good as everybody hopes he is, you might have three really, really good pitchers for a long time that are young, top your rotation for the next 7 years. So I think he in his profile is kind of a mid to high 90s fastball, splitter, and curveball. Commands the strike zone exceptionally well. Does not walk a lot of guys. I think his walk percentage was like 4% in the NPB. Won, I believe, 3 consecutive Cy Youngs there, so very good pitcher. Another pitcher option if they're trying to get a frontline guy would be Blake Snell. I personally wouldn't. You're looking at a guy that's 31 years old, 2 elite seasons in his career where he's won a Cy Young already, probably going to win the Cy Young this year. And then he has 6 seasons where he's just been kind of okay to good. He's been around league average or a little above league average, some years a little better than others, but he walks a ton of hitters, kind of the opposite of Yamamoto. Walks a ton of hitters, strikes out a ton of guys too, but he's 31 years old. I don't know if you risk on a 31-year-old pitcher who's really had two elite seasons that are carrying his value and a lot of just kind of okay to good seasons. So I personally wouldn't. And it's hard because I'd be really attacking kind of in free agency two or three guys, and if they don't get them, I almost feel like the Giants are better off going to the young guys, which it's hard because you want to say, oh, you want to compete, you want to win this year, but I think they should be trying to win this year, but also trying to do it in a way where they're also building up for the future. Their future is going to be the guys like Patrick Bailey and Luis Matos and Casey Schmidt and Marco Luciano, and these guys need to be playing every day. Now, you can't go all young. You want to have veteran presence with those guys, and that's where I think getting guys like Jung Hoo Lee or Cody Bellinger, or maybe you sign one of those and trade for Lars Nootbaar or someone. I'm just using an example, and you want to fill the offense with professional hitters around those guys to take pressure off. But, these are guys that are going to help with the whole getting younger and more athletic, being more dangerous, helping manufacture runs by being more dangerous on the base paths. Tyler Fitzgerald last year stole 34 bases across 3 levels. They don't have the Giants haven't had a guy steal 30 bases in a season since Dave Roberts in 2007, which is almost as mind-boggling as the whole no 30 homer players since 2004. So, this is a team that has got to find a way to scratch and claw some runs, and I just don't see the benefit in bringing in a bunch of aging players that, yes, they might help them win a couple more games in 2023 or 2024, but when 2025 comes around, it's like, okay, we're still in the same boat where we have a bunch of unproven young players that need playing time. So I wouldn't necessarily say sacrifice the season for that, but I definitely feel like focus on getting guys that kind of fit that timeline and age, whether it's trading for young players or attacking the two younger guys or younger position players in free agency. So that's kind of, that's where they stand currently as far as position players. You look at the rotation with Stripling and Stripling and then Cobb's option being picked up. As of right now, the rotation is a big question mark behind Logan Webb. It's kind of Logan Webb and who knows at the moment. You have Webb, you have Cobb when he's healthy in May, hopefully will be probably the number 2 as it stands. You have Kyle Harrison, and then those are the 3 that I'm pretty confident are going to be in the rotation. DeSclafani, maybe they'll give him another chance. I'm kind of hoping they just DFA him and move on that route, but you have DeSclafani, you have Ross Stripling. Those are I feel like they're more insurance options. Keaton Wynn and Tristan Beck threw the ball pretty well in San Francisco last year. I think they're going to get a chance to start a lot of games. I won't rule out a guy like Sean Manaea, get them trying to bring him back. There's a lot of kind of mid-level free agent pitchers on the market. You're going to have Michael Wacha had a nice season. Seth Lugo, Ryan Flaherty, Jordan Montgomery. He's actually a little more higher end guy. Aaron Nola, he had a bad 2023 regular season, threw the ball pretty well in the playoffs. But he's a guy that, he's thrown a lot of innings and been a very successful pitcher for quite a while. So maybe he's a bounce back candidate, especially throwing in a park like Oracle Park. So lots of intriguing arms. Bullpen was pretty solid. I think they're going to have some guys that are going to come up and fill in, guys like Eric Miller, who will help offset some of the guys that are probably going to walk this year. But that's kind of where I see the Giants going into 2024. We're going to try and keep up on this show with, different rumors that come out. We'll react to some of the different news that come out from possible coaching staff hires, from, hopefully some action with the team coming up soon now that free agency is officially started. But, as always, please like and subscribe. It helps grow the channel. My Twitter handle is going to be in the bio if you want to follow me there. Always feel free to ask any questions, any topics that you might want me to discuss on this for the next episode. But other than that, I hope everyone has a good Monday night, and we will see you all next time.